One of the things that strikes me about other parts of the world, for example, in America, when in Egypt,
like Wexford.
Well, no, not Wexford. I'm talking about other parts outside of Ireland.
Like Kilkenny.
Don't mention the war.
Yeah.
Let's just take America.
Maybe the two lads I met on the beach were the long-lost hurlers from the 2007.
If that's where they ended up.
Shouting at gay men.
Shouting at gay men on Bondi Beach.
Ruining my karma.
Take America, for example, right? In Egypt, like George W. Bush wanders into the White House, and there's this belief system that fairy dust is sprinkled over him and he becomes a great man. And Americans would be prepared to defend him because he's their leader. In Ireland, we expect our politicians to behave like used car salesmen and feel a little bit uncomfortable if they don't. You know, there's no pride in what we do. Well,
I think a new political party will emerge, actually.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. I think that people are reaching the point, slowly but surely, where there is an enough is enough going on, you know? And I'm not too sure how it will turn out and how it will manifest itself, what it will look like, but I do think that we have reached the limits of this political system that we have created here. The limits in terms of its ability to deliver, but more importantly, it's the limits in which the political system can get inside the heads of people and can allow people to dream and allow people to believe and to hope. You know, when I look at groups like yourselves, and I think that if we were sitting here in the late 1960s, for example, you would be all radicals with radical political philosophy about civil rights, about how this country will run, about the church versus state, all these things, right? By the time I was your age in the 1980s, we were becoming very apathetic because you kind of shrugged your shoulders and say, well, you know, there's no point. And I think that it suits the insiders. I come back to this all the time. It suits the people in power that we are apathetic. It suits the people in power that, you know, a few jars on a Saturday night keeps us happy. It suits the people in power that we think that you can't do anything. But that's not the way societies go about their business. Things change and political parties will emerge here. And your generation will become enthusiastic, as will mine, I believe. And my generation will become enthusiastic, not necessarily for ourselves, but for our kids, because that's what you try to do. And I believe that out of this crisis will come some big changes in the society. And it doesn't feel like that now, but it never feels like that. That's the thing, it never feels that something's building. But if you talk to people and you see what people are thinking and you go to pubs and you chat, and I tend to, rather than, you know, when I'm on book tours and things like that, when I'm selling books and things, rather than go on TV stations and do the late, and, you know, which I have done a good few times, well, I find it's more interesting to come to places like this and chat to people. And I can sense that the country isn't as apathetic as people believe. And all it takes is a spark.
So you're optimistic for a brighter tomorrow?
Absolutely. I mean, humans by nature are optimistic. You know? It's like if somebody breaks it off with you, you just think they're joking. She doesn't really mean it. You know, I mean, that's the human nature. And then you just hate her. That's fair enough, right? You get to the hatey stage very quickly. But if you think about it, you know, that's the way we are. Humans by nature, we're optimists. You know, you're given bad news and you think, well, it can't be that bad. I mean, some of us are depressive, but I think by and large we're optimistic, an optimistic animal. And, you know, Ireland is still a rich country and we still have a lot going on here. And you know, we still have done quite a bit. And there's still huge opportunity here. I think you have to be optimistic because if you're not optimistic, you lose the very intrinsic characteristic that makes us get up in the morning. You know, I get up in the morning, I have a very strange life. I don't know what I'm going to do from one day to the next. It's been called self-employed, right? Which is a really lovely state of being. It's a very zen state of being, right? And you get up in the morning and say, what new am I going to do today? What thing new am I going to do? And if you could, and that's why I say it's quite good to remain a child, actually. I get into terrible trouble because I write things about people I shouldn't, right? And it gets an over, oh my God, I wouldn't trust him and he's betraying me, and she does flirt with people anyway. And that was a joke, right? But what I'm saying is, that's because inside me is a big kid. And inside me is somebody who's terribly naive and walks into situations where most other people would see what's coming. But I never see things coming, right? And that allows you to be optimistic about people. You asked me, Seamus asked me about people writing things about me in the paper. Journalism is and commentary is a kind of a bitchy game in Ireland, right? And people write quite nasty things about you, particularly people you don't know. And I just said, the first lesson of being a public person in Ireland is to forgive everyone. You know, you've got to, because they don't mean what they say, and it's kind of a rush of blood to the head, and and I think that we should always keep, particularly yourselves, as you're moving from now into this world of adults, and you're told to behave like adults. I always think you should remember what you were like at 9 years old. Remember the person at 9, and keep a big part of that in you. And then the future always looks bright.